So I wanted to talk about topic of habits with you and other badgers that thankfully we are missing them in this meeting. Because recently, by recently, I mean 50 days ago, exactly 50 days ago, I started journaling. And that was the first time that I am doing it. And it's very interesting. Slowly, this started making me think about habits building and habits breaking. And I just start to question, do I have habits myself? Or are these practices of mine that I have them and I sometimes am proud of them and some of them I really don't like them? Are these my habits? Are we normally thinking about habits when it comes to negative ones? Because when they are positive, there is a huge endeavor of constantly reminding ourselves of doing them. And then I started questioning that, what are habits actually? And by questioning that, I mean going and searching. Is me constantly reminding myself of doing something and keep repeating it is a habit of that, whatever thing that I'm doing. But then in that sense, are habits disciplines? Are so if they are positive, of course. And if they are not discipline, and if habits are those that they are totally automated and we just doing them, sometimes we do not understand, even if we're doing it, we just catch ourselves while we're doing them, and they are not discipline related. And then I started questioning, are positive habits totally separated category of negative habits? These two are most really just labeled under the banner of habits, but they may not be the same thing. So in this thought reciprocation with myself, I was like, that's a good idea to discuss it with the most like-minded people that I have around me. And when I said, let's talk about that, like every and each of us bring up a habit that we picked and then a habit that we try to get rid of. I was not trying to say that, okay, breaking a habit most of the time is accompanied by picking up a habit to replace that bad habit. No, I was thinking of two separate things. Like when you feel that I need to build a new habit in myself because I'm missing this skill, because I want to do this, to make it very, very trivial and basic. Like, I need to start getting up early in the morning. Okay, this totally is different from I need to stop biting my nails. So these cannot, I believe, come under the same umbrella of habits. So that's what made me start thinking that positive habits and negative habits are not habits, like basically in the same category. But then something else happened. So as you know, I have my daughter, she's going to turn 1 year old soon in 3 weeks. And then I started thinking about her. I was like, she does not have any habits.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever she has, and we think they are her habits, we built them in her. Such as she taking naps when she takes naps. She takes naps when she wakes up, when she goes to bed, how she eats. These are the very basic fundamentals habits that we have, like all of us, but they are so deeply grounded inside us that we don't remember how we actually picked them up. And when I look at my daughter, I'm like, oh, that's how these habits were built inside us. That's where they come from. So that was what triggered the idea of me recently thinking about habits.
So you said you wouldn't call these habits positive or negative. Is there any other word you would use for them?
I have the problem of habits with positive ones. Negative ones, yes, I can call them habits. But when it comes to positive ones, I feel like there should be another name. They would land under the category of discipline better than habits.
So it's not that you do it automatically, but it's that you have a discipline to do it.
Let's think about the examples. Like think about a positive habit. Give me an example of a positive habit.
Exercising regularly.
There you go. Very good. So exercising lands. You most probably read the book Power of Habits. Power of Habit.
I have, yes.
Yes, not a very not yes, not our type of book, but it's a good book in the sense that does a very nice categorization of different types of habits that I liked. So it has the keystone habits, behavioral habits, and cognitive habits. What you called as a positive habit at first, like exercise, doing exercise regularly, is a keystone habit. Because that habit, which I doubt is a habit, triggers other habits. Like if you regularly 3 times a week do exercise, you most probably have a habit of eating healthy too. So that's a keystone. Keystone habits are generating other habits. But if we go back to exercise, do you think it's a habit? Do you think you would automatically go to gym 3 times a week? Is it automatic?
That's an interesting question. I think what you're one way to look at it is that the negative habits are more like compulsions where you cannot control yourself, right? But you don't have a compulsion to go to the gym and you cannot stop it. Like you're struggling to stop it. I don't think anybody experiences that. We actually, if we want if we want to do regular exercise, what we do is we build a schedule around it. We build, I don't know, certain systems that basically everybody in our family knows that on these particular days we're going to go to the gym, etc., etc. So you build a community around it, and so on, and then gradually over time it becomes such a part of your uh, identity that the drag, like the resistance against this regular practice, becomes less and less strong, right? And so you then started, people generally refer to this as a habit, but yeah, you could call it a practice, a discipline of something, but you don't really have a compulsion. That's not what it is. You don't have a compulsion to wake up early in the morning. You force yourself usually. So the things that are
You don't have a compulsion to drink water. You don't have a compulsion to eat healthy. You don't have a compulsion to take care of your negative thoughts. You don't have a compulsion
you do
to
have a
write
compulsion
journals.
for things that are the exact opposite. You have a compulsion
Exactly.
You have a compulsion to
which we
drink.
call them habits.
Yeah. I mean, you can call it whatever you want. It really is semantics. At the end of the day, as long as we agree about what we mean, then
But this is what I was questioning. When it comes to you said something about control.
Mhm.
When something is happening automatically, like catastrophizing, there are people that have the habit of being catastrophic in their speech when they think about life, when they think about events, like
Yeah.
even basic events. Like it's so hot, I'm dying.
Mm-hmm.
There is no thought process behind it. There is no, it just comes. It's so automatically. Man, it's very cold. I'm freezing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just thinking about the catastrophizing of speech specifically as a negative habit or negative self-thoughts. They are very, very automatic. Like you say something to somebody and then you constantly think, was it a bad thing that I say? Should I apologize?
Mm.
I hate myself and I should not talk to people. Look, these are somehow automatic.
Yeah, that's fair.
But then I have a list of 100 bad habits and I was going through them. Procrastination. Again,
I mean,
yeah,
I think if we get bogged down into which ones we refer to as habits, because procrastination is, for me, a complex set of behaviors. I mean, the word doesn't do it justice. It's not just one thing, combination of many things. In fact, I was writing an article, I told you, and I told Sharp, actually, this was upon Sharp's request, why smart people do not take action. I mean, I'm still not settled on the title, but then as I started getting deeper and deeper into the topic of procrastination, I couldn't finish an article because it kept branching off in so many directions, and there are so many related issues. And then in terms of how to handle it, it also depends on what type of procrastination you're dealing with and so on and so forth. So I wouldn't quite go and call procrastination a bad habit. It is a pattern of behavior that is problematic, but your procrastination and my procrastination could be extremely different. And as such, the remedy for it is also different. If you're procrastinating because you're afraid of judgment by other people, that's one thing. If I'm procrastinating because I'm a perfectionist, that's a very different thing. And if another person we're not going to name is procrastinating because he's just plain lazy, that's just a different pattern. And in each case, you can see that the approach that would work with me wouldn't work with you or with him or with somebody else. So you would have to understand really where is this coming from to be able to find the right cure, right? And so I think rather than being bogged down into the definitions of what do we actually agree to call a habit and what is not, you can call it what behavior or a pattern of behavior do I display that I think is harmful to me in the long run, to my personality, to my successes, or to my family and my relationships, my career. It can be a different set of things. And by the way, you can be extremely disciplined with your finances, but a procrastinator at your job. You could be great with your family, but a procrastinator at something else. You can take good care of your own physical body, but you can procrastinate on learning something specific that you know you have to learn to succeed in life or at your career or whatever. So that's another thing, that there is also no consistent pattern in one person, let alone in different persons. And so the question that you're asking is, you know, I understand that what you want to really get to the bottom of is, how do we define the things that we're trying to get rid of, as opposed to the things that we're trying to consistently do? let's say, right?
Mhm.
And so the question really is, how do you do that? And how do you do that consistently? Because at the end of the day, we all know that, smoking is bad for us, that alcohol is bad for you, that waking up in the morning is good, or, that cold showers are useful, and so on and so forth. Now, we understand all that intellectually. The question is, how do you package your life and build the systems so you do more of the good stuff and less of the bad stuff? I don't think anybody
Yes.
can get rid of the bad stuff completely.
Yes, very true. And in this and in this attempt to answer this question, why I pick on the topic of habit is that it has both repetition regularly of doing something
Mm-hmm.
and the automation.
To an extent, yeah, yeah.
But I don't know where repetition by effort transfers itself to automation, specifically when it comes to positive habits.
Right. But at the end of the day, do we need to overthink that?
No,
Yeah.
no, we don't need to. But the story is like, again, in the book of The Power of Habit,
Mm-hmm.
it says there is some sort of a period of 66 days of a habit to be picked up or get get rid of.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I'm doing journaling every day for 50 days.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say I'm short of 16 days
Mm-hmm.
of having a habit built inside me. But to be honest, there is a conscious effort
Mm-hmm.
every day,
Mm-hmm.
twice a day, to open my journal and write what I want to write. I
Yeah.
have my phone sending me notifications on it. I have the access to touch on that notification and open the journal. So I am taking a lot of assistance, but I have been regularly practicing this for the last 50 days. And
Right.
by no means I can say that it had built a habit inside me, because it by the way, it built the fear of dropping out
Mm.
because I want to keep doing this. Okay, wait. Okay, I started
But let
somehow
me ask you something. Be,
contradicting myself.
no, but first of all, let's understand that these kind of studies and the books where they say you need 60 days or 21 days or there's
One,
different.
yeah, yeah.
It is a study that basically looks at average, which means in your case, and in case of a particular habit, it can take a year. It can take 3 months. You can do it religiously for 6 months and then you skip one day and then you lose motivation or whatever. You drop it. So any number of combinations are possible. So I wouldn't read too much into how many days you have to keep doing it. For me, the real question is actually something slightly different. You started journaling. Why? What are you trying to get out of it? And in the 50 days that you've done it, do you see benefits of it for yourself? And if you can answer these questions, that will basically uh, initiate kind of a circle of re-motivating you to do it now for different reasons. At the beginning, you're doing it because maybe you've read that it's a good thing and it has these benefits that you think it will, you will experience. Maybe you have tried it in the past and you remember. Maybe you heard it from somebody who strongly recommended it and you've seen them transform as a result. So whatever your reasoning is, it probably wasn't firsthand experience. So you started because of a particular motivation. Now, 50 days in, your motivation is different if you're going to keep continuing doing it, right? Then
Sure.
it can be benefits, but it can also be a matter of pride. It could be a matter of, I want to be the kind of a person who consistently journals. And you know what I'm saying? Like it will go in different ways and there will be different triggers for you to keep doing this. But I would say the most important is the obvious recognition of benefits. Now, whether you objectively are benefiting or whether it is just your impression, it doesn't matter. If you're convinced that this is a useful activity, then you will keep doing it, right? If it's a useful activity, and I would argue that the pleasurable aspect of it also needs to be there, because if it is torture every time, you're only going to last so long with discipline. You have to have some
Unless
kind,
you're a sadist
unless, well,
or
say
masochist.
it's a masochist, yeah, but you need a component of fun, right? Why are bad habits so addictive? It's because there is some I mean, fast food is addictive because you have some of the brightest minds spending all their time researching, and then some of the richest people on the planet investing gazillions of money to make it as attractive as possible to your taste buds. So every time you drive by that Burger King or McDonald's or whatever, that thought crosses your mind, like that you remember, right? Your mouth waters, you remember how good that felt, even if you feel like shit afterwards. But
Yes.
there is a factor of pleasure in it. It's not just cigarette
Dopamine spike.
smoking is horrible and I'm doing it because I'm an idiot. No, you know that the nicotine pathways in your brain have evolved over millennia to help you deal with stress, to help you with being alert. And cigarettes are just a shitty way to get nicotine into your system. There are probably better ways to do it, but you are predisposed to using that. So in every addiction, there is a component of, people who spend 10 hours playing computer games every day, they're not just dumb. They are enjoying it, first of all. If it's difficult to resist, it's designed to be difficult to resist. But you have to have that argument where the argument against will outweigh the argument for so much that you will say, enough is enough. I am going to do X versus Y, right? What was Tim Ferriss
But
calling?
look, this is amazing. That's where you're going is amazing, because the same way that they cannot draw the clear line between discipline and positive habits,
Mm-hmm.
it's very difficult to draw the line addiction and negative habits. I mean, this is very interesting.
We're assuming
But
that
because nobody say that I have a very bad habit.
exercise.
I'm an addict,
Yeah.
right? or the yeah, exactly, the positive bad. I'm addicted to the exercise.
Exercising. Yeah, right. I mean,
But I to the book that I read, Irreversible. In one point, it's talking about uh, pardon, irresistible. I said irreversible.
irresistible. Right.
Irresistible.
Mm-hmm.
He's talking about the story of a guy who starts taking cold showers to get rid of depression, and then he gets addicted to cold showers. So cold shower can be categorized under the category of positive habits, but then it also can create addiction. Again, it goes back to the
Think
topic
cold
of
shower can
yes,
create an addiction?
yes,
I don't
yes,
know about that, man. That sounds
because no,
rough.
it does, it does. Actually, in the book of Dopamine Nation,
Mm-hmm.
it talks about how cold showers cause addiction, and the addiction and the long-lasting dopamine spike is one of the reasons that people get addicted. And they actually try to, because like many other addictions, you most surely have seen these videos of people trying to break the ice in their bathtub and get into that. The bathtub is outside in the cold, and the guy is breaking the bathtub's
Yeah.
ice to get inside it, because you also develop a resistance against cold. When you start taking cold shower, maybe only opening the cold water is good for you. You get that dopamine surge in your brain. Anyways, we're moving away from topic, but what I like to get to from discipline and positive habits, addiction and negative habits. Now we are actually see how these two are very much divided from each. Like, for example, if you develop a positive habit, you said exercise, which I agree. First of all, can it become a habit? Can you automatically get up and go to gym? I think it's very, very, I mean, in my case, I have been going to gym as long as I remember. I'd like, and by as long as I remember, most probably more than 20 years. I'm going to gym all the time, trying to keep it 3 days a week. And by no stretch of imagination, I can tell you that it's a habit inside.
I doubt it. It sounds very unlikely.
I'm telling you, I pull myself many of the time to outside to go to gym and do exercise.
My estimate is that over 80% of the time, I'm forcing myself to exercise. And 20% of the time, I'm really going because I'm just into it on that particular day.
Yeah, I agree. That's very fair. That's very fair. Me too. Something around 20% of the time, I go like, I'm gonna have fun. I want to do this for fun. But otherwise, I'm just going because I have to go.
Yeah.
But in the category of cognitive habits, and specifically positive cognitive habits, I remember my shift from negative self-talk to abandoning negative self-talk,
Mm-hmm.
and then to avoiding negative self-talk, but not necessarily positive self-talk, on the specific topic of communicating with other people. Like there was a time that I clearly remember I was constantly questioning myself after having a conversation with somebody that if I could articulate myself, could I say it right? Did I make some mistake? Did I break somebody's heart? Should I apologize? Should I? And I was constantly overthinking about what I had done unnecessarily. And then I started thinking that this is very frustrating. This is taking a lot of time from me and energy, and this does not have any negative. It does not have any positive positive effect on what I had done, if not negative, because most probably I am going to send a text and just say something ridiculous, apologize when it's not necessary. There is no issue, then I'm going to cause an issue by just poking on a topic that was not even the matter of that discussion. So I was like, this is very frustrating. I need to stop doing this. So for a good long time, I consciously stopped. I stopped myself from following on those negative thoughts after whatever conversation. And what I'm talking about is like many years ago, like at least 15, 16 years ago, when I started doing this. I was very young. And then it became a habit inside me. No more these days, I think, after a conversation, did I did I break somebody's heart? Should I have sent some other way? Um, uh, but I can tell you this: time to time, it comes back to me.
And let me tell you
And
something.
what I do,
Yeah.
but
Are you
listen to
sure
this.
it's
And
not?
what I do, tell
Yeah.
me,
No. Go ahead.
what I do is that, but you dropped that habit many years ago. So I remembered that I dropped that habit.
No. So you're
And
telling
just reminding,
right.
yes, it, it's not all the time. Just sometimes it comes back to me. I start overthinking about, for example, a conversation that I had with somebody who I care about, actually. And I'm like, but you let go of this many years ago. And then I don't think about it anymore.
There's a lot to unpack. Um, so let me first tell you this. I think overthinking something again is it's not necessarily a habit, but it's a pattern of behavior that you just have kind of. I mean, again, what is a habit, right? It is a pattern of behavior, but you have to understand that you're also changing yourself, right? I mean, I know people
Yeah.
who couldn't live without a cigarette, and then when they were told that they have a cancer diagnosis, it was extremely easy for them to stop smoking after that point, right? You know, for example, people who I don't know had a nasty habit of getting into their house with their shoes on and just walking around despite the fights with the wife and so on. I know people like that. The second the baby comes into the family, without any prompting, despite all the resistance, despite that it was comfortable for me, blah, blah, blah. But now that this person knows that there's a baby crawling around the house, all of a sudden the habit automatically stops. The negative self-talk, for example. I mean, you're not getting younger, and one particular advantage of getting older is you care less about what people think, and so that is not necessarily you making an effort to quit a bad habit. It could just be a byproduct of another trigger, basically changing the balance between pro and con calculation when it comes to a particular behavior, right? Drinking alcohol was fine. Now I'm pregnant. Now it's not fine anymore. Alcohol stops. You know what I'm saying? Like, what was it? Like, Tim Ferriss had
He
this in, I think, 4 Hour Body. I remember, if I remember correctly, he used this Japanese word, the Harajuku moment, when there was this gentleman that who kept thinking that he has to lose weight, he has to lose weight. He was being told he has to lose weight, and he wouldn't do anything about it until there was this one moment when he looked at himself in the mirror, and that kind of lightning strikes at that moment, and he's like, this is what I look like. It didn't occur to him until that time, the change that was happening, but that something will trigger action. So sometimes the change in your behavior happens because of a powerful external motivator, good or bad event, good event, a baby happening or you getting a cancer diagnosis or whatever. And
yeah.
that changes the way you function. And sometimes you have to design methods. If there is no massive trigger, maybe in your life there was no massive trigger to get rid of negative self-talk, but over time you're a smart person, you're a self-aware person, you realize that it's having a negative impact on your well-being, and so you decided to figure out a way to handle this, right? To go through a particular set of steps that work for you to get this under control. And this is basically the best we can hope for. If there is, for example, a pattern of behavior that we're not happy with, whether it is addiction to, I don't know, drugs or cigarettes or gambling or whatever, uh, you first aspect is the recognition of do I want to do something about it, or am I comfortable doing this in my life and I don't think the impact is really that dramatic. And no smoker or a drinker or a gambler will change their behavior unless they've had that, epiphany and that kind of a feeling of it's time I change something. Because people around them might be convinced they need to change something. If they themselves are not convinced they have to change something, even if they
Voluntarily.
even if they pretend at the surface, it's not going to happen. Take good habits for how I mean. So you basically have to understand the balance of bad versus good and figure out that it's much worse than it is good. And so when you realize that shift, when you realize that you're no longer in your 20s to get away with constant partying and not being disciplined, your attitude towards partying is going to change. But if in your 20s, you're thinking your whole life is ahead, you don't have massive responsibilities, you don't have a family you have to come to home and see what their issues are. You can just think of partying as just something that you do that doesn't really affect your life negatively too much at this point in life. Now, when you're 50 and you're partying every day, now you have to think your system of, figuring out pros and cons will be a little different. And so for negative behaviors, you need to have that conversation with yourself. But for the positive behaviors, you need to have that conversation too. And in case of positives, I think one of the factors that has to come into play, like I said, is the fun aspect of it. Are you actually enjoying it? I mean, I've tried to cycle to swim, to run. I fucking hated it. And so I'm not doing any of those things, right? I can do it on occasion. I don't mind grabbing a bicycle and then drive 5 kilometers and just have fun one time. But if you ask me to do it every day, I'll be like, no, right? Do I enjoy Brazilian Jiu Jitsu? I love it. I love it. For some reason, it works for me. It's not for everybody, right? Like we say, not everyone is that badass enough. But but at the same time, I think people have to figure out what works for them too. So you go to a broader category of exercising. That can mean 100 different things. So what exactly we're talking about? Well, are we talking about cardio? We're talking about strength training. We're talking about a combination of the two, the level of intensity, frequency, and so on and so forth. Why do you think there's so many gurus online? It's because this is a complex subject that there is no unique answer. And the best answer you can get is keep trying different things. I mean, I've tried archery, wrestling, basketball, taekwondo, and I enjoyed some more than the others, but not enough to keep me hooked as I had with weightlifting and with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And again, this is different. I know people who are obsessed with running. Like if they don't run for one day, it really messes with their uh, emotional state. And so, whatever it is, you have to figure out what is the balance of the benefit that you're gaining from it, and then the fun aspect. Are you actually enjoying it? Over time, it will become part of your identity, as in, I enjoy thinking of myself as a jiu-jitsu brown belt. And I've spent a lot of time and effort to reach that point. And so I like being that person. And so when I start skipping training, for example, or when I don't watch instructionals, or when I'm not in the know of what's happening, all of a sudden I start feeling less of myself as that person. And unless some other event has entered my life that is taking a priority, I will do what I can to keep this in my life because it's giving me more positive than negative, and I'm happy with that, you know, except when
Yes.
rip off your knee and injure otherwise, and so on and so forth, of course. But that's another give and take aspect of it. And so the, I mean, what I thought for me, the best book and material about habits is really James Clear's Atomic Habits, because it is accessible language. It doesn't spend too much time on academic things. It goes straight into the point. And after reading that book, honestly, I mean, the only other two books about habits that I ever looked at were Charles Duhigg's The Power of Habit, and I think it was Gretchen Rubin. I'm not sure what the book was called. And they just don't exist for me anymore because James Clear has basically won that market as far as I'm concerned. And then when you take that and when you combine it with the other topic for which I'm extremely interested, and that is the topic of Stoicism, and what I get from that philosophy in terms of discipline and the power of incremental improvements, and then I apply it to specific activities that I want to excel at, and then I see the positive impact. There is a different, I mean, there's a reason why it's easier to be disciplined in your 30s and 40s than it is in your 20s and in your teens. Is because in your teens, you also don't have the experience of actually being disciplined about something. So that's why, I mean, I think parents absolutely must force their kids go through whether it's a physical or intellectual activity, learning a language, dance, or martial art, or whatever. So the kid actually sees that, you know what? When I put work into this, I became extremely good, better than 99% of the population. Because it takes time for you to recognize that, it's not God-given talent or anything. I mean, obviously, physical attributes aside, if I'm not 190, I'm not going to be a great basketball player. I'm 172, and that's it, and that's not going to change. But when it comes to pretty much everything else, you can be a great chess player. You can be a great musician. You can be a great language learner. You can be a great dancer, and so on and so forth. There's gazillion of different areas in which you can excel, and whatever you're interested in, you can work to get better at. So that's why having that experience as a child really changes your behavior as an adult because you already know, you really know what you need to do to be good at something. That's why pay attention to people who, as children, didn't have hobbies where they had structured learning. And you will discover that those are the kind of people typically, not always, typically, who have struggled with discipline, who have struggled with being systematic about something, and who struggle with their self-esteem, because, the kids who were a piano player or a dancer or a basketball player, whatever, they have personality that is shaped up because of this particular skill they're good at. So then, nobody at school ever said, "Oh, Kia is a great biology student." No one cares. Nobody ever said, "Oh, he really is a good, I don't know, a French speaker." No, but they look at these additional things that you're really good at. Somebody was a great runner. Somebody was a great swimmer. Somebody was a great wrestler. Somebody was, and so that makes you stand out from the crowd, make you into somebody unique, and then gradually shapes up your. I'm not talking about the particular field. What I'm talking about is really the method. And so once you have that method in your bag as a tool, in your toolkit, then throughout life, you can take a decision that I want to pick up carpentry, or I want to pick up gardening, or whatever it is. You know what you have to do. You have to do a bit of research to understand most effective methods. Then you have to do consistent effort over a period of time to go from kind of complete amateur into advanced amateur. Then at some point, you take more advanced courses, or you take study materials, and you practice, and you become really good at it. And now you're a pro. Now you understand what tools and methods you have to use. Now you don't need coaches anymore, perhaps, or you need very particular types of coaches, but you're doing a lot more self-learning and so on. And then you introduce those habits into your life, and you turn them into part of who you are and part of your life as a regular feature, not as a random, thing. And so when it comes to the positive, I feel like you really need to try different things as a kid, preferably, or if not, as an adult. I mean, I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at 38, and it's fantastic, but I did try a lot of other things as a kid. And so strength training, I started when I was 17, right? And it really worked. I tried other things. I tried Muay Thai when I was 18. I don't know, kickboxing. Didn't work. I didn't really connect with it. And so today I do strength training to support my jiu-jitsu, but because of strength training at the time, I know what progressive effort can build over time. So I no longer think in terms of I need to learn a language in 6 weeks. I'm thinking more, I can invest 2 years, 3 years in this skill or habit or ability, and I will get to where I want to get. Like, I will be competitive in this area. And I feel like a lot of people have their doubts and, insecurities precisely because they're not that confident that they can do that. So if you're a kid who has done that, then by the age of 15, 16, 17, whatever insecurities you have surrounded by your peers, each one of them doing whatever dumb shit that they do, what's in your, what was the word? What was the guy that runs? The Navy SEAL guy.
David Goggins?
Yeah. What was the
David
Goggins
Goggins.
term for the good things that you achieved in your life that you can go back to and revisit?
Cookie jar?
Cookie jar. So you know what is in your cookie jar, right? And honestly, talk to some people around you. You would be shocked. Some people with the lowest self-esteem, if you ask them, they have nothing in their cookie jar. That's shocking, right? But then even more shocking is you have people who have good things, great things in their cookie jar, and they're still insecure. They're still, not very confident and so on and so forth, which is another issue, but then you will handle it differently. You will give them different kind of advice. You will point at examples where they've succeeded and try to get them through this process where they recognize their own achievements. Whereas for people who have nothing in the cookie jar, you're like, okay, we need to start something, and I need to take you through a process so you see with your own eye that you can actually do great things. And that is tough, and that will take a time, and that needs consistency. And if there's no habit of discipline and consistency, there's going to be a problem. So the one thing that I think it's a useful thing, and I think it comes really forward in James Clear's writing, is that, and speaking, I was actually surprised that he's a great speaker too. If you see his interviews or whatever, you are basically what your habits are, right? And by habit, let's use this term loosely. Whatever are the regular type of activities that you engage in, over time, you will be precisely that kind of a person. So the fact that you play tennis
Yeah.
once a year will not make you into a particular person who plays tennis. But the fact that you do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu 3-4 times a week, all of a sudden, everything is kind of framed around that as a key part of your identity, right? If you're being an attentive, caring father, right, to your baby for a whole year now, almost, and then going forward, that will become part of your identity as a person. Being a father is something you cannot separate. And by the way, it's also intensity and the care and the prioritization and so on and so forth, and the practice and the research that you do to become a better version of that skill. So whatever it is, if you do it consistently, right? If you put yourself on a certain path, if you're a chain smoker, you will be that person going forward. You know what I'm saying? Like, it will affect who you are. And that there is a math there. Like, you cannot just, I don't know, not exercise for 300 days in a year and then exercise for 65 days and suddenly you think you're a person who exercises. No, whatever you do consistently, you will be that. And I think connecting your identity to the type of a person you are versus to the type of person you want to be, and to understand what are the kind of things I need to do every day or every other day or whatever. What was he calling it? He was calling it a lagging measure of your habits or something like that. Like, there is a lag, that there's a lag,
So the,
and then your habits construct who you become, right? And so I keep telling people in the office, for example, forget about your grade and rank. Your rank is a lagging measure of your skill and knowledge, right? So if you're really good at protection, refugee protection, RSD, risk settlement, whatever it is, if you're really good, there may be a timeline where somebody else who has less skill and less knowledge is ranked above you. That's just the reality of life. Maybe they started earlier. Maybe they had a more favorable job interview setting. Maybe they came in at a time where higher grades were available. There could be any number of reasons, right? Random reasons outside your control. You enter at the lower grade. But if over time you increase your skills and you continue doing that consistently, and so you reach a point where people recognize you as this guy or this girl is really like, I mean, her rank, forget her rank. If you want this done, go to this person. So you start building a reputation. People start recognizing you for something. And then eventually, for me, in my experience, eventually the rank and grade will catch up. And so people place too much emphasis on the rank, not understanding. I mean, let's take Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu example. I said that to one white belt. I said, I would much rather be a white belt who beats up purple belts than a purple belt who gets his ass kicked by blue belts. You know what I'm saying? Like, rank is just rank. Or what was was it Hansel Gracie was saying that the belt protects only 2 inches of your ass. The rest of it, you have to protect yourself. And so you need skill to protect it. And so the rank and your identity, I mean, you can bullshit me into thinking about you that you are, I don't know, a professional designer, but eventually your actual thing will catch up and I will realize that, wait a second, he's just all talk. There's nothing behind that. And so understanding that habits determine your identity and who you really become and who you're seen as is a massive, maybe motivator in quitting bad habits or even starting and sustaining good habits. One of my favorite quotes from Aristotle is, you are what you I think it is consistent or repeatedly, I'm not sure. You are what you repeatedly do, right? I mean, what was it, 2,000 years ago?
yes.
The guy said something that basically James Clear is making money on.
Yes.
He said something in an interview, I think it was with Ryan Holiday. He said, what you do every day is like casting a vote for or against the type of a person or the type of identity you want to be or you have. So every day, like today,
Yes.
I went in, I had a 3-hour jiu-jitsu session, right? I casted a vote in favor of being a certain type of a person, right? But today, I also didn't phone my kids. And so that's also a vote against the kind of a person I want to be. right? And so every day when you cheat on your diet, when you sneak out and drink alcohol so nobody finds out, you know, nobody needs to know. You yourself know. You just put in a vote in that little box that keeps accumulating how many votes are for. And when you're in your 50s, and you're a fat fuck, and forgive my political, correctness, that there's a reason for that. It's not just going to happen. Yeah, sure. I mean, I get into these arguments always. But there are genetic reasons. There are medical conditions. I'm like, sure, but that is a tiny minority. Most of the people who are where they are, they know exactly what they have done or have not done that has led them there. And the people who you see in a
It
place,
reminded me of the
yeah,
it reminded me of the Rory Vaden quotes. I heard it from Alex Hormozy, saying that the success is not owned, it's rented, and the rent
is
is
due.
due every day.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
yeah, so,
I was talking to Denis today. He has, for the last several years, he's having knees problems, right? We were looking at the moves together, and I suggested that I pair up with him because I know I'm going to be careful. And my knees are not fantastic also. And so you got two brown belts going at it carefully, and still he turned and he said, I need to stop. And then I asked him, I
yeah.
said, what is going on, man? And he looked at me and he said immediately, he said, I haven't been lifting for a long time. When I lift, there is no pain and I don't get injured. But when I don't lift, when I get lazy about it, I know this.
I haven't paid the rent for a long time.
Exactly. This is it. So he has paid the rent for a while. He has seen positive benefits of it. And then he stopped paying. And now he's seeing the impact of it. So we know what it is.
Of course. I loved how the flow worked in this conversation, and you brought it to. I knew that you like James Clear's book, The Atomic Habits. And one thing in his book, which is missing or not emphasized as it is emphasized in James Clear's books, in the Power of Habits book, is the notion of automation, which is emphasized in Power of Habit, and the notion of craving in Atomic Habits. Because what I at the beginning said, I cannot categorize both of these as habits when it comes to automation, like positive habits and negative habits. But when it's come to craving,
Yeah.
they actually, all of them are habits. Because yes, I go to gym 3 times a week, and I have been doing it for the last at least 22 years. There are weeks that I don't go. There are even longer periods that I don't go. But I so badly crave for it when I don't do it. So when it comes to both positive and negative habits, what actually cause desire, motivation, and then becomes part of your identity is what you actually crave for with regard to that practice. If it's reading books, if it's writing articles, if it's going to gym, if it's doing jiu-jitsu, if it's drinking alcohol, if it's smoking cigarettes, if it's waking up early in the morning, if it's eating healthy, if it's eating unhealthy, it's what you crave for. So both of these two positive and negative habits have this in common, craving, which becomes actually what builds your identity around what you crave for.
I don't know. Again, I think your previous argument that sometimes with the positives, the craving is not there. I think it's a valid point. And I don't think the
How
argument
so?
of craving negates that. I mean, I don't crave training on a regular basis. Like I crave.
But don't you feel the gap?
I do, but I don't crave to train jiu-jitsu. I crave movement.
I see.
Like I crave to move around because all of a sudden my body gets stiff and you feel like something is off and you want to get up and start moving around, even if it's moving around the house first and then you go out and so on. So I crave motion and movement, and maybe that is what it has become habit, that I just need that. I have a compulsion. I have what was the word you used?
You crave that
Crave
strong and
motion. right? I crave physical movement on a regular basis. No matter what I
Mm.
do, I have to move. When we
But
come,
not jujitsu necessarily.
not jiu-jitsu necessarily. Now, jiu-jitsu sometimes I'm like, there's training today. I really want to,
Yeah,
I should go, but I really don't feel like going. But then again, I
I
want to
agree
move.
with that.
You know what I'm saying? So maybe aspect of a habit is something that you want to do. Sure, I agree. But to say that I always have a craving when it comes to some of my positive habits. Like, for example, I don't have a craving to write. Sometimes I do. When there's a topic that really inspires you, get on it, right? But I think what differentiates, I mean, look at Stephen Pressfield's books, right? What does differentiate a professional from an amateur? I don't need a craving. I don't need an inspiration. I don't need to be motivated. I have a schedule,
Mm,
and I'm going to go and I'm going to
that's true.
do it even if I have no craving. In fact, I have a craving to play Call of Duty to finish that fascinating story. And I have 2 more missions to, you know what I'm saying? Like, I have that. I really want to do that. I
I
don't
know.
really want to write, but I then switch off my PlayStation and I sit in front of the computer and start typing. And the article that comes out is not good. And then I have to edit it. I have to think about it and I have to, work on it. And so, but some of the things that you know will benefit you, you have to push yourself to do. Waking up at 7 in the morning has never been something I've craved. Is it good for you?
Yeah.
Everybody says so. You know me, I hate waking up early in the morning. I have to. I
Yeah.
wake up, I put it, have a fucking grumpy face. Everybody in the office knows not to talk to me until 11 o'clock, right? But is it good for me? Probably. It's probably better than staying until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and then waking up again the next day at 8 and cutting from my sleep to do the things that I do and so on. Uh, but again, for me, the important aspect is precisely that. Like, what is it that you're like? What kind of a person you're voting for? You know what I'm saying? Like, do you really crave waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning to feed your daughter? I don't think so. You may crave the first month, at the beginning, but you don't crave that. But you know that's the right thing to do. Like, you don't need a book to convince you of that argument. You know exactly what are the things you should be doing. For example, if you promised your friends you would be somewhere for a chat, you would be there.
And then you don't show up.
That's a vote.
And then you show up in a party and somebody else just reminding you that, oh, your friends are talking
You were
about you in the
supposed to
chat
be
group,
somewhere,
by the way,
right?
bro.
You were supposed to be somewhere, for example. But then, like the other thing of but that's my point. You are casting on that in that moment. You're casting a vote. Like, again, I say nobody is perfect like that, right? That's why there's only one Khabib. That's why there's only one, Usain Bolt, because these people have constructed their lives and have designed everything around them so single-mindedly that they want to be the best possible version of that particular skill set, right? And so we try to come close to that level, but we are not prepared to make the sacrifices that they make to get to that level. And so we do the next best thing, which is you combine different roles as a father, as a professional at work, as a hobbyist Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, as a writer, as a reader, whatever the hell else, as a piano player or as a language learner. You combine these things into a mix that works for you. So the question is, if you want to do certain things, for me, rather than craving, I mean, I've written about it. We've talked about it a lot. For me, the important things are two. Like, even discipline as a concept means nothing. For me, the question is the method. Exactly what do you do, right? I am disciplined. That means nothing to me. You know what I'm saying? I am
Getting
disciplined.
things done.
Yeah, but you're disciplined when, in what context, to do what kind of a thing. You may be disciplined in one thing or not the other. So for me, the important thing is what kind of systems you have that propel you forward, that kind of push you to do certain things that you think you need to focus on, right? Rather
Yeah,
than
you do not rise up into your goals, you fall into your systems again.
there you go, right? What was James Clear saying? He was saying something along the lines of winners and losers have the same goals, right? But professionals have a schedule, or they stick to a certain method, whereas amateurs, life got in the way. I had an unexpected event, right? And so goal-based things only takes you so far. Process-based thing takes you further. And for me, motivation is overrated. Discipline only works as far as you're like, you have to have the compulsion towards action. That's another thing that for me, that's the second factor. For me, one is constructing certain systems, but two, you may have the best system. You may have everything structured very well in your note taking system. You may have a great schedule. You may have reminders on your phone and all that shit. But if you don't actually sit down and write in your journal, you're not going to do it. At the end of the day, nobody's going to do
Yeah.
it for you. You still have to do it. That article that is pending is still in the list. I open it every day just so I look at it and I say, do I feel like I can finish it today? How much time do I need to get this done, right? Do I have that amount of time? Can I do a part of it now and part of it? Like, I do this mental mathematics calculation just so it is still in the back of my mind that I want to get this done. Why? Because getting that done is casting a vote in favor of being a particular kind of a person that I feel that I am and I feel that I want to become, right?
In the rent.
Exactly. So if you don't have a method and if you don't have a compulsion or trigger, or what was the word you used for the habits? I keep forgetting. I think
Craving.
craving. So if you don't have a craving to take action, being disciplined is just, what does that mean? It's like I can move my ears. Nobody gives a fuck. Like that's not a useful ability. Your ability, or you can, in theory, be disciplined about something in case you are motivated. I don't understand what you're talking about. What do you want to achieve? I want to be a professional athlete. Okay. Are you training 6-7 days a week? No. What are we talking about then? You know what I'm saying? I want to lose weight. Great. It's great objective. Are you overweight? Yes. How much weight do you think you have to lose? I would feel great if I lost 20 kilos. Are you doing something about it? Exactly. Are you controlling your calorie intake? Are you doing physical movement of the sort that gives you most pleasure, joy, in a company of people you enjoy spending time with, in an environment that is more likely to get you to do that activity or not? No? Then I don't understand what the fuck you're talking about when you say I'm disciplined. When it comes to that, when it comes to what? You need to have that conversation with yourself to understand your motivation. Have that fucking conversation. What are you waiting for? You know what I'm saying? And let me tell you this. I turned 46 last year. It's not a fun feeling when you look at that figure. You write that 46 on a piece of paper and you look at it, and then you start thinking about all the people that you know in your life, how old they are, how much time you have left, and how much you really want to get done. The time that you have is not infinite. And so at the end of the day, whoever you are at 40, whoever you are at 50 is nobody else's fault. You know what I'm saying? Like the good people, like really good people I've met, they've become good despite whatever life threw at them. And the people who are not good, they became not good no matter what advantages they were handed over. So advantages, disadvantages, objective factors surrounding. I've seen people succeeding out of the worst parts of Africa in operation. I mean, being there as part of a UN organization and seeing the people and then hiring somebody from a very poor background that, if not for our organization, would have absolutely no shot. And then that person barely speaks English. But then a year later, their English is significantly better. All of a sudden, their technical knowledge of the task they've been hired to do is overwhelmingly good. So now you're trusting them with entire projects all of a sudden. Then another year passes, and then they get the rank catches up with the skill set. Then all of a sudden they get perhaps another opportunity because all of the expats start mentioning that this particular person is really good. And then they get an opportunity to attend some important training, which elevates their skill set further. So every door that opens for them, they knock down and they go through it with a fucking, flamethrower, and they burn everything on their path. And then once they all of a sudden become extremely successful and become international staff, or are now able to not only feed their family, but feed their extended family, do the kind of things for themselves and for the family that they didn't even dream of growing up where they grew up. And then all of a sudden you see people around them saying either, number one, they got lucky, they had some talent, they had la la la. Number two, oh, he was just lucky, this particular manager really liked them. Number three, they just got in the right time, in the right place. Bitch, all of you were there. Everybody who's talking was there at the same time. And yet this person put in the work. And that is the problem, that kind of work remains invisible. And in this day and age, people want recognition for every little thing that they do. Oh, I went to the gym today. Who they are? Who gives a shit? You know what I'm saying? Like, everyone wants to be recognized for the little thing they do, because the idea of what needs to be built up before real success is skewed by, oh, internet has made somebody rich within, just because they showed their nude body, or just because they made a couple of idiotic YouTube videos. Hey, good for them. It's possible, but that doesn't mean everybody else is going to get the same kind of lucky shot.
Result.
You don't want to put in the work? That's fine for me. Then sit and wait for your possible lucky thing 40 years down the way. You know that joke about the guy praying to God and saying, when am I going to win a lottery? And after years of prayer, at some point, God just can't help it. And he just yells, buy the fucking ticket. Like, do your part so I help you win the fucking lottery. You know what I'm saying? Like, you still have to do your part. It comes down to that at the end of the day. So the method,
That was
the
fun.
system, the structure that you are creating in your environment, so you are more likely to do this skill. Number two, the compulsion, or the desire to act, that's your natural go-to thing, to act, right? And understanding that it's a long path. And by the way, everybody strays. There are stretches of time when we don't exercise, or we don't read, or we don't write, or whatever. And that's okay. We're all human beings. Things will happen. But how quick you get back on the path is another indicator for differentiate successful people from unsuccessful people. That's another thing that nobody talks about, unfortunately. I think James Clear did mention that. I may have even mentioned it among my takeaways. I should read my own articles sometimes, reread, just to not forget. But
Which one?
because I wrote about Atomic Habits, my takeaways from.
Yes.
And so the big factor is the fact that, but I remember this point from his conversation with, I think he was talking to Cal Newport, and it was great conversation. And there he said something along the lines of, what separates really successful people from unsuccessful people is their ability to get back on track. How quickly they get back on track. Like, they stray, just like everybody. But when you stray, you're like, oh, I skipped 2 days of training. I'll skip the third. What's the big deal? But if I skip 1 day of training, now I'm like, I see the gap in my tracking sheet, and I'm like, motherfucker, you're not skipping 2 days in a row. You know what I'm saying? Like, you get.
But do you remember what he was listing as the trick to get back on track by professional?
Well, on that, to get back on track, actually, rather how to deal with the compulsion to stray or to not do what you're supposed to do. I remember Jocko Willing saying that his approach is not today. Like, if I really don't feel like exercising, like I really am not in the mood, I'm just going to tell myself, not today. Today, I'm still going to do it. But if I feel like this tomorrow, then I'll skip tomorrow. And he says, chances are you're not going to feel like that tomorrow. And so this is a trick that he uses to keep himself on.
That's very cool.
Yeah. And then I think James Clear, was it? Or somebody else? James Clear. I think it was James Clear who said his trick was not twice. So if he doesn't feel like doing something, that is his regular, let's say, daily habit, he will skip it. But he will never skip it twice in a row. And so that then
it's kind of on the other side of the coin, like, of Jocko Willing.
You introduce a rule and you stick to that rule. It's like, I allow myself, without any feeling of guilt or regret, to skip a day, but never 2 days in a row. So I have told myself that this time, I say, unless I'm physically injured, no matter what I do in the day,
yeah,
will not skip 2 days in a row of exercising. And by the way, in the last, I have skipped, but you see, when you set yourself a standard that is so high, you miss it, and you still have done better than 99% of the global population. Like, I wanted to do 315 workouts last year. Do you know how many I did? 300. Awesome, right? But if I set myself a target of 300, I would have probably done 270. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It has to be
Sure.
realistic. I'm not saying set yourself a target of being an Olympic champion, and then if you're only a champion of your country, great. No, that's different kind of crazy. You have to build up for that. Like 1 year, I set myself a target of regularly training 4 days a week. Once I achieved that, then I moved next year to 4.5 in average, then to 5. Like I've been doing it for several years now. So now my objective consistently is 6 days out of 7, I will do a workout. And it doesn't matter what situation. I could be a sprint training. It could be a cardio training. It could be a kettlebell workout. I could go to the gym and do heavy deadlifts and squats or whatever. I could do jiu-jitsu. I have several versions of workouts, and I pick the one that works best. Or it could be just, push-ups and air squats and handstands if I'm in a hotel room somewhere and I don't have a equipment or anything. Whatever it is, I will prioritize that over sitting and watching a Netflix movie, and then I will sit and watch a Netflix movie. So it's not like I cut out from all the fun. No, like if you put me in front of a guy, a person who regularly watches movies, trust me, I've probably seen more. Like I will watch the fun stuff that I want to watch, but it all comes to what kind of a person do you want to be? And so every day,
Yes.
that both you
Yes,
put
that's what I was about to say. It's by no means habit, it's identity. It's
yeah,
who do I want to be?
exactly. And
That's one thing
that
that once I was
that's perhaps
uh,
what's most powerful. Like, do you want to be known as a person that is gambling regularly? Like, is that the kind of person? Like, if you're a single person and you meet the woman that blows you away, not just appearance wise, but just voice and smell and the way she acts and talks, and all of a sudden you feel this urge that I have to win this person over. I feel like this is the one, right? Are you the kind of a person that she would look at? Have you done? Have you paid the rent or not?
yeah,
And that's
yeah.
what that it comes down to, that kind of stuff.
I remember once in the gym I talked to a young guy uh who he was telling me that he's preparing himself for his summer body, like close to summer. And I remember I told him, but which one actually are you? Are you the fat fuck who is preparing himself for that six pack for the summer body, or you are the fit guy who is just
Just fit.
for some reasons out of shape and getting which one is you actually?
Which one would you rather be?
And he was like, or which one would you rather be? And I was like, I never thought about it. I said, but you are most probably one of them.
No, I like
You
that.
can choose.
I like that. I like,
Yeah.
yeah. And then at the end of the day, uh, you know, if again that's your identity, the guy that just looks good in summer and then he's a lazy fuck the rest of the year. You know who you are,
Yeah.
you know.
You know who you are, dude. Yeah, you look awesome in that photo. You look awesome in your wedding photo, man. You are so fit. But that dude is not you.
Not anymore, or not on a regular basis.
Not ever.
Yeah,
Never.
it was AI.
That dude was just there that day,
Yeah,
fit in shape. But you are the whatever you are.
is
So amazing.
I just read this sci-fi book. I loved it. It was great, and I'm happy to see that apparently it's by Christopher Paolini, who is known for more fantasy books like dragons and stuff. I don't know if you've ever heard of
Hmm?
Enron. They even tried to make a movie. So he's the author of a very famous fantasy line. And now he has written 2 books that are sci-fi, like hard space opera sci-fi. It's called To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. I mean, I should know it exactly. I just read it. And then the other book was Fractal Noise. And his Fractal Verse is the universe in which he's planning to write several books, which I'm very thrilled to hear. And there, the main character is going through this process. I don't want to spoil anything in case you want to read it. It's a great sci-fi. I loved it. And she gets this advice. Like, let me just say one thing: the lead character is a female, but it is so well done. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
It's a great lead character. It's well built. Their stakes are clear. The character goes through a certain arc that you believe. You root for the character. You understand her insecurities. She's not fucking kicking ass from day one. No, she has to go through a learning process of how to adapt to this new reality in her life. And then circumstances constantly put her in situations where she makes mistakes, and it's all real and it makes sense. So that kind of a female character is what fucking Hollywood needs. So go make that book into a movie. If you do it right, it should be amazing. Anyway, just sidetrack that. But there is a piece of advice she gets. And she says, she asks one other character, which by the way is not even an important character, just passes through the story. He says, how do I handle this path? And the answer is basically what Jordan Peterson said in another context. You remember he said, the only way is through. Remember that thing?
Mhm.
He asked him, how do I handle
Yes.
that?
Yes.
He said, the only way is through. And the advice this character gets, she's told, eat the path. Don't stray the path.
Yep.
Don't look for detours. Don't go under, over. Eat the fucking path. And
Dude, this is the whole subject of his new book.
this is it.
We Who Wrestled with God.
I mean,
Yeah, that's the journey.
again,
That's all about the journey.
for my taste, Jordan Peterson has gone a little too much in the direction of the religion, and I understand the symbolism and the mythology and the practical benefits that he presents.
By the way,
I get it, but it's just
Pierce Morgan read his book and interviewed him, and he was like, "But this is not about religion at all."
yeah.
Even
Hey.
by the end of this book, I was thinking that,
Did you read it?
does he believe in God? No,
You
not yet.
haven't read it. Yeah, no, I haven't read it too.
No.
I struggle with Peterson's writing, honestly. I thought I barely handled the first 12 rules. In the second 12 rules, I was like, God damn, man, just concentrate on what the fuck you're trying to say. When he speaks, somehow it's easier to listen to, as long as it doesn't talk about politics, right? If he speaks about like
Yeah.
how to improve your life, I find it easier to. When I read him, it just gives me a headache. He has this way of writing that, and I love that he was the one who produced the guidance on how to write essays. Motherfucker, read your own guidance. You know what I'm saying? Just make it straightforward
Yes.
so we can actually understand what you're trying to say. That's why, like, writing such as James Clear's writing worked for me. I was like, I have enough complexity in my life. I need straightforward for you to break it down and explain to me what you're talking about. And he did, and it was great. That's why it's one of my
Then in this case,
nonfiction books.
in this case, he himself does not advise you to read his third book, his fourth book, actually.
Yeah.
He said it himself that he said himself that this one is a little bit more difficult.
More difficult? Anyway, like he has
Yes.
never written easy stuff. You know, I was giving this advice to a staff member who struggles communicating in a non-confrontational way. Like every time she enters a conversation, it turns into a fight, it turns into people who are upset. And by now, this person has such a reputation that even when she's actually objectively not confrontational, people interpret everything she says as a confrontation. So I pulled her aside and I said, listen, you have to understand, what is the objective of you communicating? She's like, I want to convince people of the point that I'm making. I'm like, good. So you're trying to build an alliance, right? Are you succeeding? She's like, no. What do you think is the reason? They don't want to listen. All of them. Everybody decided that you're not a person worth listening to. What does that tell you? Maybe you need to backtrack a little, right? Maybe you need to bring down the temperature every time you speak. Maybe you need to bring down the tone. Maybe you need to change the way you approach things. Maybe you need to try to listen more. But the point is that nobody even cares about what you're saying. How you're saying it has become more important in your case, and it reached a point where nobody even listens to you anymore because you have a reputation that is pure poison by now. People don't want to touch you. People don't want to deal with you. People hear your name. I said, I was coming to this operation. I was already warned about you. I've never even met you in this place. And people are telling me, oh, you're going to work with this. I'm like, I don't care. I can handle any kind of a difficult personality. But I'm trying to tell you, what is the objective of communication really? Like, what is Jordan Peterson trying to accomplish? If he's trying to convince people of something, then his writing is not really achieving that objective unless he's aiming at 12 people who have the time and the patience to go through that.
He's aiming at me.
But yeah, how many people are there that are going to really spend that time to do this? I don't know. I would
Yeah.
say,
Um, I do not know the answer to that question. But anyways, his new book, Most Early, is a little bit more difficult than other books. It's denser,
you
by the
read
way. I was about to download I was about to buy the audiobook. Do you know how many hours is the audiobook?
how many hours?
25 hours.
Come on. That's just why.
And he read it himself. So
No, like for example, listen, Jonathan Haidt, right? Not light reading by any stretch of imagination.
no.
He manages to convey an argument in a way that is convincing.
Man, he
clear.
hits the nail in the
Yes.
head. He's amazing.
Like Peter Attia.
He's amazing.
Peter Attia's book was not uncomplicated. It was technical and on some things quite messy in terms like you're reading into medical terminology and procedures and trying to understand. But he does convey the message clearly. So, you know.
Yes, I agree. But Peterson is my intellectual hero, so I'm gonna read whatever he writes.
No, I mean Peterson. Unfortunately, his politics have almost tainted. I mean, he has reached a point where, because of his political views, people are just looking at that and then making judgments about his other books, which they haven't even read. That's the sad part. But he actually offers so much valuable advice, but like they look at certain aspect of his public persona and his statements, and then they jump into conclusions about he must be then all this, which he's not.
Do you know how many people, whenever I brought Jordan Peterson's name, they said, "Oh, you're talking about that misogynist dude?" I was like,
he's the last
what?
misogynist. Why? He has never said anything.
Well, like, I mean, that can be the exactly last adjective that you can use for him.
Yeah.
How come?
Yeah, I mean, again.
Anyways, but you're right.
At the end of the day, you know, how he communicates formulates views about him. And so it is up to him to form a certain opinion. He can do a better job, as he did, in my opinion, before. And then his latest escapades have not helped. And so he can only control so much of it. At the end of the day, public opinion is out of control. But, you know, when I read Cal Newport, I know clearly what he's trying to say. When I read James Clear, when I read even Nassim Nicholas Taleb, as convoluted as he sometimes can be, you understand where he's going with this. You know what I'm saying? Like, I like his writing, like Yuval Harari, Clear, you know, Jonathan Haidt, Marcus fucking Aurelius, you know, a person who wasn't even a writer. He was there in a battlefield.
He was not even writing for anybody.
No, he's not. His book was never edited by any professional editors. You know, never seen by publishing companies. You know what I'm saying? And still, it has impact. And so, yeah, I guess it's anyway. That was a detour in terms of Jordan Peterson and all of that.
Jordan Peterson, right? But I pretty much enjoyed both books. 12 Rules for Life and Beyond Order, both of them. I really, really enjoyed both of them.
I like
and
it.
I read
I have to say,
12.
I picked and choose. I picked certain chapters and I read. I didn't read the whole thing. Like I could. I just like, come on.
But I think for the second one, you had some prejudgment because of the first book.
Yes.
Because second book is much easier than the first book.
Yes.
Much easier.
I don't want to have a headache after I read somebody's writing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because you can't even compare it. The first book is much complicated, complex than the second one.
I don't know. I guess.
And by first and second, I'm talking about 12 Rules for Life and Beyond Order. Because Maps of Meaning, I have never read it. I don't have it. I recently want to buy a hardcover copy.
It's like 1,000 pages.
I mean, forget about that. But I want to own one hardcover copy of that. And it's now $120.
Great.
I was like, wow. It's the price of 10 books.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you have to.
But of course, I can buy the paperback.
I mean, you know,
but
you have to decide what to spend money on.
That's for sure.
You can't just,
That's for sure. But anyways, man, that turned out to be an amazing conversation again. I mean, the fact that it was only two of us made it even more amazing. Wink, wink.
Double wink.
But yeah, double wink. Exactly. But I tried in one point that you were talking, summarize our talk about habit, and then to discipline, and then to system. I was attempting to summarize it in one sentence, and I've just done it on the fly. So I just want to read it for you.
Okay.
And then you tell me what you think, and then we wrap this up. You need to professionally build systems that gear your discipline into actions that may look like habits in the process of getting shit done.
You're starting to sound like Jordan Peterson. Read it again.
You need to professionally build systems that gear your discipline into actions that may look like habits in the process of getting things done.
Okay.
So they may look like habit from outside, but they definitely are part of your identity. And the way that they have become part of your identity is by you building system and staying accountable to your systems like a professional.
The identity has to feature in that sentence, and that the path to the identity that you want to have or to build is through being disciplined, but you need to translate it into reality by having what you said, professional systems, and by being constantly geared towards, by being kind of biased towards action. You would rather act than not, kind of a thing. And as long as you have that action bias and you have this focus on action, then that will that will turn your discipline into something real and not just something you talk about. And in the process, you build skills, habits, whatever you want to call it, purple.
What do you want to call it?
It doesn't matter. And then all in the service of building the identity that you want to build. A little inside joke there.
Thank you for that. But man, that was amazing. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
I loved it too. Maybe we should have an exact recap of this conversation in the presence of you know who.
Other badgers.
One specific one, actually. He would
yeah.
Well, he promised he'll listen to this, so we should let him listen to this and we should quiz him. And we should maybe give him.
My problem is that they are constantly changing the position of the fat badger. So I cannot keep the track which one is the fat badger now.
Now you don't need to worry about it. All you have to say is a fat badger and a fatter badger. Problem solved.
Yes, of course. Man, thank you. Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure. Thank you for doing all the, you know, organizational work here. I just show up.
I try. Thank you. Thank you, man.
All right. Well, take care.
And have a good one.
You too. Bye bye.